All right, welcome everybody to our Let's Talk segment. Here it is May 19th, and tonight's topic is going to be summer fun preparations, right? And tonight we have a couple of amazing ladies, Meg Johnson and Dr. Robin. And so take it away, ladies.
All right. Well, hello and thank you, Craig. And this is going to be a little bit tricky because our names rhyme. But as Craig said, my name is Meg, and our topic is so much fun. We're going to talk all about summer traveling and doing it all while you are crushing your health goals. We'd love to start tonight by finding out, where are you traveling to this summer? So if you'll take a minute and pop it into the chat, we would love to know. And we also want this to be interactive. So if you have any questions about traveling or the summer and staying on track with your goals, if you'll put those in the chat, we will do everything we can to answer all of those questions. And I have my friend, Dr. Robin, in the house, and she is a neuropsychologist, which is really just a fancy way to say she is interested in the brain, habits, mindset. She's a huge believer in Dr. A's Habits of Health. She's also the queen at not only having fun in the summer, but traveling as well. Robin, so glad you're here tonight. Will you share your health story with us?
Sure, of course. Yes, I'm so grateful to be here and to share space with you all tonight. Yeah, for me, I became intentional about my health back in 2022, following just a scary cardiac diagnosis with my mom. And so I decided to become intentional about my health. And I've always been an active person, but haven't really always focused on the nutrition, right? I figured that I could work out and not have to worry about what I ate. And so we know that you can't outrun your fork, right? And so I tried to come up with some health goals on my own. And, oftentimes I start out of the gates great, and then I kind of go back to my old habits. And so I noticed a colleague at work who was like radiating something. I was feeling frustrated, stuck. I was feeling like I should know what to do. And I was really struggling in the dark. And so I asked her what she had been doing. She introduced me to a program, and I just really wanted to feel better in my own skin. I ended up releasing 35 pounds of emotional armor that I didn't know I had to release. And I actually heard someone recently say that she didn't lose weight because that suggests that it wanted to be found again. And so, yeah, I released 35 pounds, but more than that, I reclaimed my life and I came back into my own light. And I feel like I'm now modeling something completely different for my young daughter, which I'm really grateful for as well. It's really been more of a mindset shift more than anything. So that's what happened all those years ago, right? And now I just show up differently. I show up differently in the world. Meg, I would love to hear, please, I would love to have you share, your health journey, a little bit about your journey too.
Of course, I'd love to share it. And I just love listening to you talk. And I know I'm not the only one. I know people are out there being like, man, the words you use are just so good. So I loved how you shared that you were struggling in the dark. That just, I remember that feeling. Like I can go back to it. Just like that, struggling in the dark. Emotional armor. Man, I've never heard that phrase before. That's really good. And then coming back into your light. That is just beautiful, beautiful. So I'm excited for the world to get to hear all the nuggets of wisdom that you have. So I just want to share my story for a little second. I found this program 8 years ago, which is kind of cool because eight's my lucky number. But I started actually 8 years ago this month in May. And I released 30 pounds of emotional armor, but lost 30 pounds in 10 weeks. Look at the disclaimer. Hopefully it's in the chat right now. And I went straight through the summer. So I started in May. I actually started on Mother's Day, Sunday. This was my Mother's Day gift. And boy, was it the best Mother's Day gift I've ever received. And I have to tell you, probably the most surprising thing is, I went straight through the summer, lost my weight, celebrated my anniversary, went to a family reunion, had a bunch of trips, had two young little babies. And I had so much fun. And I used to think that, if I had fun in the summer, it was all about like eating the ice cream, right? The mint chocolate chip ice cream or watermelon or, I don't know, eating my way through the summer. So, but what that taught me, or I really I ended up, when I did that, I just felt frumpy and low on energy. I didn't feel like myself. So I love, Robin, how you shared you came back into your light, because that's how I feel. I found out like summer is not about the food that we're eating, right? It's about the memories, the experiences. And man, I long for everyone to experience that. So really, when I think about it, that was this summer I learned like getting dressed didn't have to be a painful experience of, what didn't fit, right? Or being afraid of putting the shorts on. But being able to really choose what I did and be intentional. I got to chase my kids down the beach, which is something, frankly, I didn't want to do before, or have the confidence to show up at the barbecue without all the internal dialogue of like, oh, feeling like I didn't feel good in my own skin. So just so grateful to Dr. A and to this program and all of the coaches that have poured into all of us. And really the purpose of the call tonight, and that's really what we'd say our hope is for all of you, is that you leave this call and you feel more empowered and inspired to achieve your health goals. We're going to give you a lot of tips, a lot of ideas, things that we've used and I've heard other people use, things you can use in your own journey. And we just want to acknowledge some of you have not even started the program yet. You might even be on just thinking about starting the program. Others of you, you're seasoned veterans. You have been through a couple of summers, which is great. Wherever you find yourself tonight, we are so glad that you're here. And we really just want to create a dialogue. We want to give you and equip you with the tools and the knowledge of how to travel and spend your summer with intention. So we just want to tell you that we aren't here to tell you what to do. That is for sure. We really want to empower you with those tools. So here's what we'd ask. We would ask for you to just be open tonight. You might be hearing some new ideas. We'd ask you to be open to those ideas, open to maybe doing something differently. And of course, if you found yourself on the hamster wheel that, some of us have found ourselves on, we ask you to be open to having new results, because we believe that that is possible for you. And that is possible for you in May as you get started through summer, and really at any time, because it starts with us, right? We know that this program taught me, like, it starts with me taking responsibility for where I am. Robin, tell me, is that similar to kind of what you found in your journey, that it starts with you?
100%, right? And I think the big shift too, when you think about different things that maybe you've tried on your individual journey with regard to health and wellness, right? We've all likely tried multiple different things, and maybe different things work differently at different times. And I think the biggest shift for me with our program is that it went from a diet mentality to a health mentality. And what I've come to appreciate about a diet mentality is it's almost kind of like, it feels like punishment, right? Like we're in trouble, so we have to go on a diet in a way, right? Whereas I think that with our health program and the focus on the mindset and the focus on the inner work, right? And kind of becoming more consciously aware and more intentional about your choices, you realize that it does all start with you, right? And that we each do have control over the choices that we make. That doesn't mean any one of us is perfect, coaches included, right? Like, let's just put this disclaimer out there that just because you're a coach doesn't mean that you have it all figured out, right? No, like I still struggle like everybody. And I need to course correct just like everybody, right? And I think it's about figuring out and noticing when those deviations are happening, and then knowing that you can lean into our community, you can lean on your coach, you can lean into the tools that Dr. A has just so lovingly laid out for us to then kind of go back inside and be like, okay, like what is my why? Why are these things important to me? And what are the choices I want to make? And how do those things align with the goals that I have? So yes, I believe that it all, for me at least, it has really been an inner journey, which I didn't expect, right? Like that took me by surprise. I don't know if that was a surprise for you, Meg.
For sure, for sure. And I love how you talked about a diet versus a health journey. I think probably on a call just like this, it might have been this exact call 8 years ago, I learned the difference between diet and a health journey, right? And you think of look at diet, and the first 3 letters of diet are die, right? It's all about restricted, and things that we don't want, versus a health journey is focused on things that we do want. And the first 4 letters of health are heal. And that's the journey you've been on, the journey I've been on, the journey we all are on. I think if you're here tonight, you're ready to heal and you're ready to take that next step. And I love you gave everybody a disclaimer. I think we should give another disclaimer tonight that if you're here tonight, you need to also not only love that you're on, but also talk to your own coach about your individual game plan. Our advice might be different based on where you are in your journey, and your coach knows more about your personal plan. So if you haven't talked to your coach in a while, we double dog dare you. Get out your phone, send them a text message, set up a time to talk to them this week, and come up with your personal plan for summer, because it will make a difference. Now in Optavia, we have lots of sayings. I love that about us. And I would love if you have a favorite saying or something you hear your coach say a lot, or something you hear a lot on this call, put it in the chat. Things like stop, challenge, and choose. We lead from the future, act in the now. Obstacle is the way. But here's one you might not have heard before, and it's begin with the end in mind. And so we would encourage you, before summer really starts, right? Before you go on that trip, begin with the end in mind. So ask yourself, okay, what do I want my outcome to be of summer, of this trip? How do you want your clothes to fit when you're on the airplane coming back from that trip, or coming back at the end of the summer? What do you want that outcome to be? Because the answer to that question is going to shape your choices. So that's really important. Another saying is to make the main thing the main thing. And this goes, Robin, to talk about all the internal dialogue and the internal things we've learned about our habits. But the main thing about summer is not about food or ice cream, right? Or watermelon. The main thing is rest. It's fun, it's adventure. And the main thing about travel isn't food either, right? It's rest, fun, adventure. So I think for me, I need to remind myself of that, because I can get swooped up sometimes and forgetting the main thing. Now I have a feeling, and I know some of your stories, Robin, but you've made a big shift in how you've looked at summer and travel over your course of time since 2022. Can you share with us a little bit about what travel and summer was like before you decided to get healthy?
Yeah, I mean, before I was prioritizing my health, a vacation or travel was an excuse for to have a free-for-all, right? It was like this opportunity to eat, drink, do whatever I wanted, right? And then how would I feel? I'd feel like crap, but like it was sort of this reward, or that was the story I was telling myself, right? That it was this opportunity to just like do whatever I wanted, and that wasn't serving me well, right? And I think, some things that I would add to the list that you mentioned, Meg, with regard to, what can travel bring? I think for me, it also brings opportunity for recharge. It brings now, I should say now. Before, it maybe wasn't so much that, but now it's an opportunity for recharge, an opportunity for presence, an opportunity to practice gratitude, right? And kind of all of these things are habits and things that you are intentional to focus on. But I also think that's a really beautiful reminder that things can shift pretty dramatically, even if you're going to maybe the same place. I've actually gone back and reclaimed some spaces that sounds maybe potentially strange, right? Like I've gone to a place that I had gone to before I got healthy and before I was prioritizing my health. And I went back to almost like do it different. And it was so empowering, right? It was so empowering to go back and be like, wow, I got up first thing in the morning to work out rather than being hungover. I like had a good breakfast to fuel my body. I hydrated my body. I went out walking. I did steps, right? It just feels different. And then you're able to take in the experience differently. And so I think that that's where kind of the presence, the opportunity for recharge, and of course, being cognizant of gratitude is super important in the mix whenever we're traveling or taking opportunities to go on different adventures as well.
That's so good. That's so good. I remember thinking calories don't count when you're on vacation, right? But we know they do, right? Like they do. Also, road trips were all about the snacks I got at the gas station, right? Like that was the whole point of having a road trip. So that was just big things I had to learn and just reframe my mindset. And I know you're kind of the queen of neuroscience, reframing mindset. And I would just love, love, love to pick your brain tonight since we have a neuroscientist here. Can you weigh in a little bit on kind of the science behind habit formation and why we have to retrain our brains when we've been doing things a certain way for so long? Just would love to hear from you on that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, as we know, it's a very complex process, right? It's a very complex process. And I think when you think about habit formation, a habit is something that has been repeated over time, right? And so therefore it has then created this like well-oiled pathway in the brain. And then what happens is that becomes automatic, right? So you think about things that you just do without thinking about it. Riding your bike, driving a car. There was a time when those things were more effortful, right? When you were first learning to do it. But now that they're automatic, now they've gone to a different part of the brain. So when you think about habits, you have the prefrontal cortex. If you feel inclined to touch your forehead, this is where the prefrontal cortex is. This is the thinking part of our brain, right? This is where the conscious awareness, conscious decisions are happening in this front part of the brain. It takes more effort, right? Because it's in our conscious awareness. So whenever we're starting a new habit, it feels effortful because it requires our conscious attention, right? It requires kind of constant practice. But as things become more automatic, it shifts back to the basal ganglia. The basal ganglia is a subcortical structure that's kind of deep in the brain. And that's where those automatic overlearned behaviors are housed. And so anytime we're learning something new, I think we live in a society where it's kind of like, okay, we do it 2 times, it should be good. Well, no, it doesn't really work that way, right? Think of how many years you've been driving a car or you've been riding a bike. Those are well-exercised muscles, well-exercised pathways. And so I think that's where kind of having patience and giving yourself grace on the front end of learning any new habit is just really important because it requires more conscious attention and effort. And I think the other thing too, I noticed this with my own journey, but also with a lot of clients, is that we want to do all the things at once. I'm going to work out 5 days a week. I'm going to totally turn around my nutrition. I'm going to read all the books. I'm going to do all the things all at one time. And how does that go? I know for me, that didn't go so well, maybe at first, but then it falls off, right? And so I think the thing that is really important about habits also is that you start small because you have to be doing things that you can do consistently and repeatedly, right? With consistency and with repetition, because it's very easy to become overwhelmed with all the things. And so I often will say, like, pick one thing. Like, what's the one thing that you want to focus on first? Maybe you have lots of goals, but what's the first thing you want to focus on first? And so I think sometimes kind of depending on where you're at in your health journey, right? And kind of what your habits currently look like, I think it can just be really helpful to pick that one thing and kind of work on that first, because then you can habit stack. Once a habit is established, you can then stack another habit on top of it. And then it becomes easier over time. But man, it's hard at first, right? It's much more effortful for sure.
Yeah, that is a good thing to remember. That quote that comes to mind is a rising tide brings all the ships back to the harbor. So a lot of times when we focus on that one habit that we want to focus on, right, we see improvements in lots of different areas of our lives. So I love that. And your reminder to give ourselves grace, man, I need that reminder. I need it like tattooed on my arm. But I think we probably have a lot of people out here that need to remember to give themselves grace as they are going through this journey. And, I've talked to a lot of people over the last 8 years, and what I've found is we can't shame ourselves to health. That just doesn't work. It puts us on a cycle, right? At least for me, if I shame myself to where I want to eat, and then
Yeah.
the shame just gets bigger, right? So instead, we love ourselves to health, right? We love ourselves enough that we choose to do things differently. We choose to work on one habit at a time. And we choose to open our Habits of Health book and make that a
Yeah.
priority, make us a priority. So that's really,
May I share one? That's such a good point, Meg, because I think that a lot of times many of us are good at encouraging other people, right? We're good at like giving the high five, giving the kudos, giving the shout outs to other people. But how often are we giving that to ourselves.
Oh,
And it
absolutely.
might sound cheesy, it might sound silly, but it is so, so important, right? And so I recently started giving myself a daily high five in the mirror in the morning. It sounds maybe ridiculous, but here's what I've noticed. I've noticed that when I take a moment to just be with myself and not be a critical, like, here's all the things that are wrong with my body, right? Or here's all the things I wish I could change, but I'm simply just looking at myself and really like taking myself in with compassion, and then just giving myself a high five. I double dog dare you to try it and see if you don't smile at yourself, right? Like in a warm, loving way. Because I think that's like one example of a habit that you can take no matter where you are, right? Like wherever you're traveling, like wherever you are. And I think that's part of what we'll talk about too with the different tips. You know, sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I'm in a new place. Yeah, but which of your like which structures that you've created for yourself can you kind of take with you no matter where you are? I think
Totally.
that's part of what I have found at least has been really, really great about travel is, yeah, we have wonderful frameworks and infrastructure that Dr. A has introduced us to with this program, and those can be transported wherever we go. So I find that to be really helpful for travel as well.
Okay, so I accept your challenge for the high five in the mirror tomorrow morning.
I love that for you.
If you accept Dr. Robbins' challenge, put it in the chat, say I accept, and we can hold each other accountable because I want to try it and see how that goes. So let's give them. You talked about some practical tips. Let's talk about those general tips for summer and for travel. What to do, how to do it. I love the quote: "If you fail to plan, you're basically planning to fail." And nobody is on tonight that wants to fail, right? We are here because we are ready to succeed. So, what would you say are some good tips for people, just generally as they get ready for summer and travel?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big one. First is to just like have a plan. Like, what's my goal with travel? You know, is it a free for all? Okay, how do I feel about that choice, right? Stop, challenge, choose. Because all of it's a choice, right? But I think, you know, for me, it's kind of a mindset. And I think depending on where you're at in your journey, it might not even be like a question that you're asking yourself because this is just part of what you do, right? And I think that that's another beautiful thing about our health journey is it becomes part of your identity,
Yeah.
right? Which is so important, right? I'm a healthy person. And so these are the choices that I make that coincide with that part of my identity, right? And so, you know, having a plan, and that's something you talk about with your coach.
Yeah.
And I've had clients who are traveling internationally and well, it doesn't have to be international, but they're traveling far away and they come up with their initial plan. Yep, I'm just going to stick to the 5 and 1.
Yeah.
Great. When you get there, if that becomes stressful, because that's not the goal either, right? What are some alternative options, right? And then we'll maybe talk about, oh, we can do 4 and 2 instead, right? Like we talk through kind of some different options to then allow for some flexibility because you want to keep the main thing the main thing. I think also just bringing with you things that help you to be successful. So for me, thankfully, you can only see and not smell, right? I always bring my trusty running shoes because I'm always walking everywhere. I take the steps all the time. And I bring my ginormous water bottle, 64 ounces. I usually drink 2 of them a day. Right? Like you bring the things with you that help to set you up. I have my alarms going off throughout the day, even though I've been doing this for a really long time. Right? Like bring the things that help you to bring your structure with you no matter where you are. Those are kind of the things that come to mind off the top of my head for me. What would you add to that, Meg?
No, I think you nailed it. You said come up with a game plan, have a plan for checking in with your coach, and make the main thing the main thing. I mean, those three things. I think if we could all do those three things, we would absolutely succeed. And you're right. Like the plan isn't 5 and 1. The plan is optimal health. That is why we are
Yeah.
here. We're here to get healthy. And we are here to find that optimal health. So I think that is awesome. I love that you have your sneakers and your water. I'm a little bit of a dork when I travel. Like I love to bring things with me. Um, I gotta have my things. So if you've ever traveled with me, you know I have a little box that I bring with me, and in it I have water. Did you know I don't like to bring my shaker with me on trips, but I drink a little bit of a 16-ounce bottle of water and I pour the shake in here and I just shake it really good, and it does it for me. So I can bring my
Love that.
yeah, bring my shakes. I travel with Fuelings even 8 years later. I travel, of course, with my brownie because I love it, and I bring a little cup with me, um, when I'm in the hotel room or wherever, and then I bring a spoon. So that is really important for me and my success. And then, of course, my hot chocolate. Now, one thing that is really silly, I don't know what disclaimer we need for this, but my husband lost 35 pounds on our program eating hot chocolates. That was what he had, Optavia hot chocolates all day long. He loves them so much. So don't sleep on the hot chocolate, y'all. It is so good, even in the summer. But I start my day every day with one of these, and I bring my own cup with me because I get frustrated when you go to the hotel and they have like the itty bitty little coffee cups. So I definitely can't be having those itty bitty coffee cups. I also bring this frother. You can get it from Amazon or wherever you get things. But bringing my own frother, bringing a cup with me that I know is going to work. And oh, this is going to be so cheesy. I can't believe I'm going to say it out loud, but I bring my good attitude. I bring my perspective that where there's a will, there's a way, that I can do it. The obstacle is the way. That is so cheesy, but it's so true. It is a mindset. I got healthy over the summer because I decided to. I brought the food that I needed to the family reunion across the country, right? Like that, I was so locked and loaded. And I will say, all these years later, it was 100% worth it. 100% worth it. So we'd love for you to pop in the chat what you would bring or what you bring when you travel and stay on track with your health goals. Just in general, a couple of tips as we're wrapping up. When you're on a cruise, take the stairs. I know Robin has a stair crew when she goes on cruises that just take the stairs every time. Limit desserts, of course, getting active, drinking your water. I have trigger foods, right? So I always tell people, stay away from your trigger food. For me, bread can be a trigger food. That's something I've got to stay away from. If we've missed anything, pop it into the chat because we've got a wealth of knowledge. We've got lots of veterans here tonight. But man, this time has gone by so fast, Robin. I have loved just chatting with you and spending time with you and talking about summer and travel and tips. Woo, we could do it for hours. I hope that these
Love it.
tips are something that you leave tonight with. Think about that one thing that you learned tonight that you are going to take with you on your journey. And we hope the most important thing you are leaving here with is just feeling empowered that you're going to reach your goal. You're going to set that next goal. And we have loved spending tonight with you. All right, Craig, back to
Good
you.
job, ladies. Thank you. That was so insightful and helpful. And the perspective is that I hear what you're saying is let's move into a new way of being and not just like almost pretending for a little while that we're being healthy and then really going back to the old ways. But what's it like to live and vacation in a healthy body this summer and next summer and the summer after that? So thank you so much, ladies. We want those of you that are involved in the Brain and Body Reset Challenge, you're going to text the word summer, SUMMER. When you are texting that word in, you don't want to use anything except for the word summer. And you're going to text that into this number, 208. It's the normal number you've been using, 208-285-3211. That's 208-285-3211. And join us next week. Now it is a holiday, but for those of you that want to tune in, we are going to do our Health Pros live Q&A. We've been doing those once a month, and so that will be next week on May 26th for our Let's Talk community time featuring our health professionals. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Let's Talk.